In this lecture, you will start learning about the select statement, but this is just the beginning because we will be working with this command for most of the lectures in this course. So, what is the select statement? The select statement is the SQL command that is used to retrieve or read information from a database, and it can be very simple or quite complex depending on the features you decide or need to use. A select command is usually what is called a query, and that is a very common way to call it. But in reality, other commands that are used to modify or delete information from tables have also a query component, which is called an implicit query, because internally they need to retrieve the rows they are going to modify or delete. In its simplest form, in a select command, you specify the columns or values you want to retrieve and the table where those values are stored. So you might remember that I talked about a products table in the lecture about basic database concepts. And I had 5 products in that table, which included aspirin, penicillin, and others. So if I want to get the list of products that I have stored in my database, I have to tell it what information I want to get, for example, the name or price of the product, and I have to tell it what is the table where that information is stored, which in this case is my products table. So my request to the database must be specific, and I have to tell it something like this. Give me the name and price of all of the rows stored in my products table. But Oracle is not going to understand me if I use that language. I need to tell it what I want in the language that he or she understands, which in this case is, yes, you guessed, SQL. So translated to SQL, this is my request for the database. I have to use the word select to tell it the columns I want, which in this case are product name and price, and I have to use the word from to tell it the table where the data I want is stored, which in this case is products. Let's take a closer look at this command. These 2 words here in uppercase are keywords or reserved words, and what that means is that they are part of the SQL language. And product name and price are columns of a table, which in this case is products. So this command has 2 parts. This is the first one, and this is the second one. And in SQL, these parts are called clauses. So this is the select clause, which includes the select word and the list of the columns I want to retrieve. And this is the from clause, which includes the reserved word from and the name of my table, which in this case is products. And this part of the select clause is what is called the select list. Okay, I'm going to run this command. The list of records that I get from the database is called a result set. And as you see, it has rows and columns, and is very similar to the structure of a table. Now, if I wanted all of the columns from this table, instead of listing every column here in the select clause, I can put an asterisk, or a star as some people including myself like to call it. So the most simple form of the select statement ever is the one where I ask for all of the columns and all of the records of a table, which looks something like this. Select star from products. The select statement can have many other clauses, but these 2 are the only ones that are mandatory. Or in other words, these 2 clauses are the only ones that must appear in every select statement. If one of them is not present, you will get an error. As you can see, I can write the whole statement in a single line, or I can separate it in more than one, and it will work the same. Also, I can write any part of it in uppercase or lowercase, and it will also work. So the decision to write your commands in one way or another should mostly be based on legibility and the use of common practices. And if you are going to be doing this as part of your job in the company's coding standards too. One common practice is to write the reserved words in uppercase and to put every clause on its own line. Okay, now I need you to write some select commands so that you start feeling the joy of giving instructions to your database in its own language. Please pause the video now and write and run these select commands. And when you're finished, continue with the lecture. Hey, welcome back. How did you do? How did you feel? Was it nice? Was it easy? That's great because this is just the beginning. Did you find any problem? Let me know. When I tell you that I'm here to help you, I really mean it. I'm here to help you. So if you find any problem, just pause to the question and answer section. I will help you out. Okay, see you later. Okay, to finish this lesson, you need to know that beside listing columns here in the select clause, you can also include literal values or constants, such as numbers or strings. You can also include expressions, function calls, and pseudo columns. So 25 and test are literals, and as you see, string or text literals must be enclosed in single quotes. I'm not going to go into details about what functions are by now because they are covered in detail in a future lesson. By now, suffice it to say that a function is a small program that returns a value, which may or may not be based on a value or a list of values you pass as parameters. In this case, we are calling the toChar function, passing higher date as a parameter, and this function is executed for every row in the result set of our query. And a pseudo column is a phantom or fake column that don't really exist in any table. It is just a value that is available during the execution of a query. For example, in this case, the raw num pseudo column is a number that is assigned to every row that is returned by the query. Now, before finishing the lecture, please pause the video again and work on your next task. Hey, please, don't continue with the next lecture if you have not completed this task. Great! Now that you are done with this task, let's move to the next lecture.